On a quiet summer morning in the small town of Arlington, Indiana, 17-year-old Valerie Tindall vanished without a trace. She was bright, ambitious, and just beginning to build her future. Her family thought she was heading out for another day of work with the neighbor she trusted, a man who'd been part of their lives for years. But Valerie never came home. Days turned into weeks, and hope slowly gave way to dread. Then, months later, a chilling discovery buried deep in a backyard would uncover a dark secret, one that revealed just how close evil had been all along. Before we continue, welcome to Crime Uncovered, where every case has a story, and the truth is often stranger and darker than fiction. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit that button to stay updated on the latest true crime cases we uncover. And to our returning subscribers, thank you for your continued support. Don't forget to like this video so it reaches more people who care about the truth behind the headlines. I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your country in the comments below. So back to the case. It was supposed to be an ordinary summer day. Valerie woke up, had breakfast with her family, and left the house to do a short part-time job. She was 17, finishing her junior year and saving money for college. Like any other morning, she took her phone, some cash, and her keys, nothing unusual. Valerie grew up between the city and the country. She was born in Indianapolis in 2006, but when she was 2, the family moved to Arlington, a quiet town about an hour from the city. Jack and Shayna had moved their 5 kids to the country because they wanted safety for their children. The family fit in quickly. Neighbors had block parties and looked out for each other. Valerie loved animals and helped on nearby farms. She studied hard and wanted to be a doctor, so she worked in science classes and looked for part-time jobs to save for college. That summer, Valerie tried different jobs. A fast food place didn't work out. Then a friend told her about a local, small job doing garden and yard work for Patrick, who ran a small private business and lived next door. Patrick had known the family for a long time. He was a neighbor and family friend, someone Valerie felt safe around. The work seemed simple: mowing, cleaning, light yard work. To her family, it sounded perfect. On June 7, 2023, Valerie left in the morning and said she would be back by lunchtime. The day began normally. She ate breakfast with her family, said she was heading to work, and left wearing light summer clothes, no bag, no change of clothes. Her family didn't worry at first. Sometimes Valerie stayed later than planned to finish a job. But by late afternoon, worry grew. Noon passed, then afternoon, then early evening. It was nearly 5 p.m. and she hadn't returned. Jack called her phone. It went straight to voicemail. That wasn't like Valerie. Even if she was busy, she would call back. Shayna tried again. Still nothing. They called Patrick to ask whether Valerie had been with him. At first he said he hadn't seen her that day and suggested she might have gone to Indianapolis or met friends. But that didn't match what Valerie had told her mother that morning. She had only said she was going to work. By evening, neighbors gathered at the family home. Patrick and his wife came too. Patrick again said he hadn't seen Valerie that day. He seemed calm. But as hours turned into night, and phone after phone went unanswered, Jack and Shayna realized this was more than a late return. They reported Valerie missing to the Rush County Sheriff's Department just after midnight. Police began the official search. Flyers, social posts, volunteers, and K-9 teams joined in. They searched nearby woods, riverbanks, fields, and every shed and garage they could enter. Valerie's phone had pinged last somewhere in Arlington, and then went dark on the afternoon of June 7th. Her green 2000 Honda Accord was missing. Her room at home was untouched. Chargers, school things, and personal items were all where she left them. There was no sign she intended to leave town. The community hoped for the best. But as the search widened and no trace was found, quiet dread settled in. Something was wrong, and the only person who had been with her that morning gave answers that did not match what the family had been told. First, Patrick was a helpful neighbor. He answered questions, joined searches, and said he wanted Valerie found. But small things did not add up. He said different things to different people. He told Valerie's mother one story, told police another, and told neighbors a third. Each time his version changed. Detectives checked phone records and asked witnesses. A few people remembered seeing Patrick with a car like Valerie's that day. Others said they saw him and Valerie walking together earlier. The family began to doubt his first claim, that he had not seen her that day. Patrick's behavior on his property also drew attention. Investigators noticed a patch of ground that looked recently disturbed. Weeks later, neighbors saw him digging, then filling holes with dirt and construction waste. Cameras and photos showed him acting in ways that seemed odd given the situation. He said he was working on projects, but to others it looked suspicious. Police interviewed Patrick several times. In early interviews he said he had not seen Valerie on June 7th. Later he changed his story and said he had seen her, that they were supposed to work but the job fell through, and that he had driven her to a nearby spot. When investigators asked Patrick where he got some of the details he claimed, like a text from a family member saying she was going to Indianapolis, those people denied telling him that. Because his statements changed, and because witnesses came forward with different recollections, detectives began to treat him as more than a helpful witness. They obtained warrants to search his property and vehicles when they had reasonable suspicion. K-9 units were brought in. The dogs alerted to a specific area behind a shed, near a small man-made pond, but at that time, the police didn't yet have solid, legal grounds to dig. Meanwhile, the family watched every move. Shayna had long said she felt uneasy around Patrick. She told investigators he had shown Valerie a lot of attention, giving rides, asking questions about plans, and sometimes acting overly close. Valerie had told her mother she left her phone in places so she felt safe, a comment that later worried Shayna. Without solid physical proof, though, the search had to continue by the book. Police kept surveillance, followed new leads, and worked to get the evidence they needed for a stronger search. Then months later, new technology provided the break investigators needed. Because detectives could not get a search warrant just on a dog's alert or on suspicious behavior, they turned to technology. They ran topographic and ground-penetrating scans across Patrick's yard looking for disturbances in the soil. The scans look for changes under the surface, places where earth had been moved recently. The results showed something unusual. An uneven area, dense and rectangular, under a patch of lawn next to the small pond. The shape and soil differences suggested something had been buried there. With those results, police got a warrant. On November 28, 2023, the court approved a search of Patrick's property. The next day, teams returned with dogs, forensic crews, and digging equipment. Neighbors watched with a painful mix of hope and dread. As the team dug into the marked spot behind the shed, the dogs focused and pawed at the earth. At first they found a wooden box that looked like it held old tapes, almost a decoy. But the digging did not stop there. Deeper down, they uncovered another box, larger and sealed. Inside, wrapped in a black trash bag and badly decomposed, was a human body. The scene was terrible and quiet. Officers called the coroner and secured the property. The family was notified. Pieces of clothing, a hint of jewelry, and other identifying details pointed to one heartbreaking truth. The remains were later confirmed by dental exam to be Valerie. The town felt the ground shift underneath it. The discovery that Valerie had been buried on the property of the man the family trusted changed everything instantaneously. What had looked like strange behavior before now looked like deliberate concealment. Police arrested Patrick that day. He was taken in for questioning after a search of his home turned up no obvious additional evidence. But the buried body itself was damning. The community was stunned. Many had known Patrick for years and could not reconcile the friendly neighbor with the possibility of murder. For the Tindall family, the quiet of their small town was gone forever. As Patrick sat in custody, investigators began the slow work of building the case. They cataloged the soil, the boxes, the area where the dogs had first alerted, and the pattern of his statements. Every inconsistent answer he had given became more important. At first, Patrick would not speak to detectives about what had happened. Then, when confronted with the evidence, the body found on his land, he changed his tone. Once police told Patrick the body was on his land, he paused. In the quiet of the interrogation room, he finally spoke. At first he said nothing, then he said what he called a mistake. Patrick told detectives that Valerie had come to his place that day after work and that she demanded money. He claimed she threatened to report him for bad behavior if he didn't pay. He said the argument became heated, that she began to undress in the house, and that in a moment of panic he wrapped his belt around her neck. He said he had not meant to kill her. He also told investigators how he tried to hide what happened, keeping the body in the house overnight, later sewing a wooden box, burying it in the yard, and putting a fake box filled with adult tapes on top as a ruse. He said he took Valerie's green Honda to another part of town, removed the license plates, and abandoned it, all actions he described as panicked attempts to cover up an accident. Detectives listened, recorded, and pressed for detail. But parts of Patrick's story did not match the other evidence. There were no texts, no calls, and no messages to show Valerie had been blackmailing him. Friends and family said Valerie did not behave like someone who would threaten someone in that way. Investigators saw his actions after the event, burial, misdirection, inconsistent statements, as signs of planning to hide a crime, not the clumsy acts of a man who had simply snapped. Patrick denied premeditation, but his behavior after the death, moving the car, burying the body carefully in a box and then trying to disguise the grave, made detectives suspicious of a different motive. That Patrick had an unhealthy interest in Valerie or behaved in ways that crossed boundaries, and when she resisted or threatened to tell, things turned fatal. Even though his confession admitted involvement, certain questions remained unanswered. The medical examination of Valerie's remains could not always say definitively how she died because decomposition had destroyed some evidence. That left parts of the story open to interpretation and argument. The exact cause of death could not be fully established in the lab, only in Patrick's words and in the circumstantial evidence gathered by investigators. Still, with a confession, a body on his land, and steps showing an effort to hide the crime, prosecutors had a strong case. The files went to the district attorney and the next steps moved toward formal charges and resolution. After the evidence was turned over to prosecutors, charges were filed. Patrick was accused of murder, lying to investigators, and abusing a corpse. For the Tindall family, the criminal justice system would be the place to get answers and to hold someone accountable. At first, the case could have gone to trial. Prosecutors weighed whether to take the matter before a jury or to accept a plea. Patrick's changing statements, the discovery of Valerie's body on his land, and his partial confession created a difficult but strong case. Given the emotional toll a full trial would take on Valerie's family, and the desire for a certain outcome, prosecutors negotiated a deal. In March 2024, Patrick accepted a plea. He pled guilty and was sentenced to 57 years in prison with no early release. Given his age, that effectively ensured he would spend the rest of his life behind bars. The plea ended the prospect of a jury trial but also meant some details never got fully tested in open court. The judge also ordered $10,000 in restitution to Valerie's family. That small amount felt like a hollow consolation to many watching. The money could never replace Valerie's life or the years stolen from the family. At a press conference after the sentencing, Jack and Shayna thanked police and volunteers for their work, but they also expressed regret and frustration. They said the justice system had failed to give them the answers they most wanted. Why? What had Patrick's real intentions been? Did his wife, Linda, know something? How could a trusted neighbor hide such a crime in his own yard? Detectives had questioned Linda and talked to others who lived close by, but they found no direct evidence tying her to the crime. She had been in the house during some of the time in question, and the family and neighbors wondered how someone could live in that home without noticing anything. But legally, there was no basis to charge her, and she did not enter the public eye to answer those community questions. Forensic science had limits in this case. The body state meant coroner reports could not conclusively name the exact mechanism of death in every detail. Some evidence supported the idea of asphyxiation, but decomposition made it difficult to rule other possibilities out entirely. In the end, investigators relied heavily on Patrick's statements and the circumstantial picture. The car moved, the burial staged, the lies told. The sentencing brought a measure of closure. Someone had been held responsible, but not the full answers the family needed. Many in Arlington felt the sentence was right. Others wondered whether a longer or different charge should have been considered. The small restitution amount only deepened the family's sense that the result could never truly match their loss. Valerie's family keeps her room as it was. The small reminders, posters, folded clothes, a charger still in the socket, make daily life a series of small shocks. At public moments, Jack and Shayna hold one another and speak for Valerie. They thank the people who helped, but they also say they will never understand how the person they trusted could do this. People in the town still talk in low voices about the betrayal. Many saw Patrick as part of the neighborhood fabric. To think the man who mowed yards and helped fix fences could hide such a secret shook everyone's trust. Others worried silently about Linda, about what neighbors might have seen but not reported, and about how easily a small town can be blindsided by violence close to home. For investigators, the case was a reminder that people can hide crimes in ordinary places, behind a shed, under a fake box of tapes, or under the weight of silence. The limitations of the forensic timeline, the decomposition of the body, and the inconsistencies in Patrick's statements left some details forever uncertain. But the big truth, that Valerie was killed and buried on the property of the man she had been working for and trusted, was no longer a mystery. Valerie's story matters because it shows how danger sometimes hides behind familiarity. Her parents now urge other families to trust instincts, to listen to feelings of unease, and to speak up when something feels wrong. They ask that people check on one another and not dismiss small, worrying signs. The court gave a legal ending, but not every question has an answer. Why did Patrick do it? Did he think he could keep it secret forever? Did anyone else know or notice anything and stay silent? Linda never gave a public statement and was never charged, leaving a gap in the story that the public still wonders about. Valerie's name lives on in the memory of those who loved her. A young woman with plans for college and a life that was cut short. Her family honors that memory by telling her story and by urging care and vigilance in communities that believe themselves safe. Her death is a hard lesson. Sometimes evil hides where you least expect it, and the trust we place in neighbors can, tragically, be betrayed. Thank you for listening to Valerie's story. If this moved you, please like, share, and subscribe. Most of all, check on your loved ones and speak up if something doesn't feel right.